You can make a difference. By becoming a supporter of our channel, you not only help us thrive, but also become an active part of our community. The link to join us is in the description. The choices we make, the way we choose to educate our children, the choice we make in how we govern our home, all of this is determinant for our future satisfaction or dissatisfaction. We used to say, folks on Twitter, to whom I want to send a big hug, retweeted this phrase a lot. God always forgives, man sometimes, nature never. And that's how it is. Life, what we have chosen, will one day demand from us. When we need to shed those deep tears, the only way is to try to figure out what we can fix today. The big problem is that we often find out there's not much left to do. There's one thing in raising children, my people, that's called character. That's determinate. What is character? It's everything that's been imprinted, everything that's been left in the mind, in the heart, and that identifies us as a person. When we say, wow, this person has character, that means they don't need to be watched over. They have a good foundation. When a storm comes and starts tearing off everything, only what has a good foundation remains on the ground. Life is the same. Sometimes storms blow over us and we feel our structures slipping. The greater, the more rooted a person's character is in good values, in well-built realities, the greater their ability to resist and stay standing will be. What's the big problem of today's world? The fragility of people. It's astounding, folks. It's terrible how we identify this all the time. Life is as hard today as it was 50 years ago. What changes are often the opportunities. We have a lot of possibilities today, so of course we'll suffer a bit more. The greater the number of possibilities a person has, the greater the number of choices they'll have to make. So today's human beings need to be very prepared to survive. But difficulties have existed since the beginning of time. Now, what scares me is realize how fragile people are nowadays. They give up too easily. It's astonishing how today we're not willing to live the sacrifices life demands. And I think that's the root of the big problem. Raising a child, bringing a child into the world, a person brings the child into the world, but they want to keep living the way they did before they had children. That's very irresponsible. One day I was watching that TV lady, Astrid Fontanelli, who's a TV presenter. On the same program where I met Fleur de Lis, she adopted a boy. And the TV presenter was asking, "So, Astrid, how's your life now?" After the child came. She said, "Totally changed." Just with that sentence, you already know Astrid is on the right path. A child who doesn't totally change a mother and father's life isn't being well managed. Then the presenter asked, "But how? What changed?" She said, "I don't go out like I used to. This boy needs to be watched all the time. I don't entrust this solely to the babysitters. I make sure to spend as much time with him as I can." Why? My people, whoever spends more time with the child will have influence over them. Whoever spends more time with that child. So, you see, even if you trust the babysitter's physical care, you know the babysitter won't let them suffocate. You know the babysitter will feed them at the right time, bathe them at the right time, put them to sleep at the right time. But what about character? Who's going to instill that in the child? The babysitter or you? Are our babysitters prepared to offer the character our children need? Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're even more prepared than the parents. But that's not always the case. Character is what will determine the choices. What will help this boy and this girl make life choices. We're shocked to see how early our children are turning to drugs these days. Of course. Our 11, 12-year-old children are already living adult lives. They're not prepared for adult life, but they're already able to live it. We've said it here so many times. I particularly think it's an aggression against our children when we expose them to a stage of life they're not prepared for. Children have to be children. Teenagers are teenagers. They can't live. They can't rush into something they're not prepared for. That's a crime. And that's why, if you've brought a child into the world, start managing their stay in the world now. Because if that child doesn't turn out right later, we won't have anyone else to blame. Who's the biggest responsible? Who's the first responsible for raising children? It's the father and mother. Of course, you'll have a series of collaborators, the school where they'll study, the daycare where they'll stay, the friends surrounding them, but you also manage all of that. If you don't make the effort every day to know what happened at school, occasionally visit there, ask the teacher how your child's behaving in there. Because sometimes the child you have at home isn't the same child the teacher has there. Sometimes there's a big difference. Is the home extending to the school? Is the school extending to the home? Not always. Sometimes we have differences. So it's necessary for those who brought the child into the world to manage all of this, because otherwise they'll cry later. Oh, we'll have to set limits for this child. Set them. It's better to set them now than regret not doing so later. Then the child becomes too fragile at 18, at 20. We mentioned last week about the woman priest. You talk about those who are into drugs. You talk about those who are into prostitution, but you don't talk about those who are into laziness. It's true. Laziness today is a terrible thing. Why? Because it's directly linked to fragility. I don't know where it started, but what's a very concrete reality is that we're losing the ability to endure sacrifices. Folks, we want everything very easy. If something requires a bit of effort, we think it's not worth it, we let it go. I've seen stories around me. I'm not just talking about things I've seen from afar. No, I've seen many people around me not succeed. Why? Because they didn't want to make the sacrifice at the right time. They didn't want to study in that school. Why? Because it was too demanding. Oh, go to the other one, that's okay. That won't be so much trouble. Is that honest? Is it honest to exchange something that will better prepare us for the future just because we'll have to suffer a bit more? It's not possible. This Christian teaching that many people criticize, the church preached sacrifice too much. I might agree that sometimes the preaching was exaggerated, but today this laissez-faire culture, do whatever you want, leave everything very loose, that won't build people either. If I want a result, I have to know that to achieve that result in the future, I have to strive in the present. It won't work, folks. It won't work if you let things grow however they want, if you don't impose limits, if you don't say no at the right time, if you don't say yes at the right time, if you don't have that sacrifice every day, do the homework. It's not just the child who has to do homework. Parents have to do homework too. And what's homework? How was your day today? Where did you go? How was that story? It's not about investigating, no. It's about becoming friends, about trying to establish that dialogue, which is hard work. It's really annoying. Sometimes you come home tired, needing rest, and you come home wanting to be free from everyone, and then you end up giving up all of that. Okay, one day you're too tired, but you can't give up on that every day. How many times do you see little kids? I talk about this in the book, The Kidnapping of Subjectivity, which I recommend to all parents because it talks about this. There are concrete examples of a mother who can't handle her 5-year-old. The 5-year-old commands her. He has total authority over her. Why? Because she's afraid to contradict the child. So we need to be very careful because sometimes by not setting limits at the right time, we end up planting a very serious problem for the future. And I'll say it again, life can only succeed through the sincere experience of a well-made sacrifice, of a well-made renunciation, because that's what will give us the conditions to be able to get there and have the right to sit and rest. There's no way to rest from the mission of being a parent. It's day by day, it's a struggle. Nobody told you to get married. Nobody told you to have children. Nobody forced you into this. It's a choice. So if you made that choice, you need to take that responsibility every day. And it won't weigh heavy on you as long as you love. Love is what solves all of this. That's interesting too. You notice that when you truly love someone, you're capable of making sacrifices. And you start discovering the path that love indicates to say no at the right time and to say yes at the right time. That's how it has to be. There's no other way. Now, is it a struggle? Is it sacrifice? It is. But nobody said it would be very easy either. I don't receive things on a silver platter, as is commonly said when things come easily. God gave us freedom as a gift. I carry it within me. You carry it within you. We all received it. Now, being free is another matter. It's like having a plant that needs to grow through the care we give it. When you water it, when you fertilize it, so that all the potential in the seed develops, and that seed can become the tree that potentially exists within it. The same thing is true of freedom. Being able to say, I am free today, means acknowledging that you are in the process of liberating your own freedom. Because only those who possess themselves can offer themselves. Only those who are truly free can experience this. This freedom might be what fascinates me most in life, because sometimes I find myself a prisoner of such childish feelings, like jealousy and comparison. Increasingly, life leads me to understand, from my experience and the experience of those around me, that the true experience of God places us in a context of maturity that frees us from all the burdens and ties that childishness imposes on us. Sometimes we don't understand that the lower realities of our lives, the passions of the soul, need to be mastered from top to bottom, not bottom to top. So it's really an exercise, a spiritual exercise, to raise the drawbridge of the inner castle and say, okay, let's meet these folks who inhabit me. Often, our love, instead of protecting, it unprotects because it infantilizes. It's often marked by a lack of reality in love. It's like a person in love who can't see reality. A passionate mind, a mind very involved with another person who has just arrived, is a danger. It's dangerous to make wrong decisions. Passion blinds. I always like this distinction. Passion is the antechamber of love. We can only say we love after extinguishing all the incendiary fires of passion, because they are dangerous. And you have the right not to like someone, Fabio. We have the right not to like someone. Liking is one thing, loving is another. I can sympathize deeply with you. We have a delightful connection. But I don't have to love you because I didn't choose to love you. Loving is a choice. Sometimes in our daily lives, we don't know this difference, and we don't even give ourselves the right not to like someone. If someone is almost dying and needs my help, I go there, I am a Christian, I serve Christ, but I don't need to eat popcorn at the cinema with the person. Of course, you can set a limit. Yes, with affection. Love includes respect. That's what you're saying. I won't harm you, I won't boycott you. But on the other hand, I also don't have the obligation to socialize, to establish this daily bond, to exchange phone numbers. Sometimes people are very confused. It's real immaturity in understanding Christianity. Oh, how many times have I suffered from this immaturity? I have been so immature. Oh my God. So much that today it is easier for me to understand when someone is immature with me. Sometimes I meet people absolutely on the margins of the Christian experience, still based on obligations, suffocated by the obligations that happen to exist within Christianity. And sometimes I meet some people so free, who seem to have found the deepest aspects of Christianity. You spoke of the stages we need to dive into to reach what is most untamable in us. And Christianity is a movement precisely that goes through conquering what is untamable to then live the freedom of being who you are. Discipline is the word of today. We are increasingly immersed in a context that relieves us of discipline, and this is very sad. It's very sad when we identify that our children are becoming strange. They're becoming strange to any kind of sacrifice. Because life has to be like this. Life, we have to make it easier. Fine, today's conveniences are very good, but they cannot take away from us the opportunity to live asceticism and the discipline that make every man, every woman find this balance, this maturity. How the world today stimulates us outward all the time. How difficult is inner life these days? It's a costly task. My therapist always said, we think that inner life comes for free, comes in the life package. I was born, so I already have everything internally installed. It's as if I had several programs to run, but I need to understand how they work. And really stopping talking or being away from people is still not being alone. It's still not being silent inside. Sometimes we think we don't have control over our thoughts. Yes, we do have control over our thoughts. Thoughts need to be educated at a high level. We need to elevate the level of thought with good content. Oh, my head is full of nonsense. For intellectual life, you need to educate thought through concentration. Spiritual life is no different, right? Sometimes we pray asking God, take this out of my head. And then our Lord sometimes provides us with a good movie, a good book, good music to educate and channel our thoughts, and we end up fighting in an inner ignorance about how to deal with it. And in fact, we need to live that reality of the superior dominating the inferior. So I have my instincts, my emotions, my feelings that are more conscious, my thoughts, my will, which are decisions based on my thoughts. And then comes the spirit. I can even place will and thought here. No one, nothing can enslave the mentality of someone who truly wants to be free. It's like in that movie, The Shawshank Redemption, when that man spent so many days in solitary confinement, imprisoned there. When he got out, they asked him, how did you manage to stay there? He said, it was easy. I listened to music all the time. Then the other said, but how? There's no music there. It's all in my head. It's here. It's in the head that we are liberated. That's why it's here that God happens. When God enters my mentality, when God changes the way I look at myself, the way I look at the world, He will naturally change the way I look at those around me. He will change the way I see my restrictions, my losses, and then there is no other destiny to seek, to conquer, to experience, but satisfaction. Despite so many difficulties, we can smile and say, life is worth living because my head is helping me make it worth it. Father Fabio, why is it so much easier to hurt the people we love than to hug them and say kind things? It's because, in reality, human aggressiveness is undeniable. Everyone has aggressiveness, even the sweetest people. Those who speak calmly, they are full of aggressiveness. Some control it more, others control it less. Some control it too much, and suddenly it explodes because aggressiveness is a very positive impulse. We can't think that aggressiveness is just a bad thing. No. Aggressiveness is an impulse that even helps us succeed in life. In many moments of our lives, we lost because we lacked aggressiveness. That impulse to move forward, to overcome, to deal with the difficulties that are part of us. People who are too soft don't like that constant nourishment. Nothing is good. It gets better one day, the next day, it's not good again. These people lack aggressiveness, a positive aggressiveness, which is this survival impulse, which we inherited. This is ancestral in us. Often we take out our aggressiveness on the people we love because we are unprepared to deal with this aggressiveness. And today we know, we talked about this before finishing the first segment, we are living in a time of great tension. We are overly demanded because we have many possibilities. Humans end up getting lost among all these possibilities. And this generates a great anxiety, which is the feeling of not reaching, of not living what they need to live. And it is natural that at a certain moment, this aggressiveness will be directed at those closest to us. Because you can't. A very simple example. Sometimes a guy is at work really wanting to hit his boss, but he can't. He will get home stressed with everything he experienced, and his poor family will take the brunt of it. And that's where the issue of our control comes in, folks. We need to control this aggressiveness a little. And I'm not saying something I don't need to hear myself, okay? Because many times I am uncontrolled with my aggressiveness. So I need to be very careful not to let my aggressiveness come out at the wrong time, in the wrong way. I need to direct my aggressiveness into my books, my reflections, my physical activity that I make a point of doing. That's where I need to channel my aggressiveness so that I can treat people fairly. I can't take out on my mother the anger I carry within me, which is natural to my being. And you know how difficult the mother-child relationship is, because it is the place where these aggressions are very much on the surface. Maybe because it is the closest bond we have. With all due respect to the father, the closest bond, I think, is with our mother. And it is natural that our greatest difficulty is with her as well. It is very common to find children who have a hidden hatred for their mother, a hidden hatred for their father, and do not have the psychological conditions to assume this aversion, because in the name of this romantic love we are raised with, that a child should never oppose their mother, that a child should never say, "I hate you." It is natural that at a certain moment in life, our aggressiveness makes us experience this hatred towards the people we love most. Because hatred is the opposite of love. It's the same thing. Psychology teaches us that love and hatred come from the same impulse, the same source. So, managing this aggressiveness today is a necessity, because you must have seen this happen many times, that sometimes a person is capable of pulling out a gun and killing another person in traffic because of the intolerance of that moment of aggressiveness. So, for us not to need to kill each other, for us not to go around slapping each other, we need to discover where we can channel this blessed aggressiveness in the right way, in a positive way. If you have a lot of aggressiveness in you, channel this aggressiveness to work in your favor. Your creative process, your dynamic, your entrepreneurial spirit, channel it there. This is not magical. It is not overnight, but with awareness, I know I am aggressive. So I need to be careful that my aggressiveness doesn't end up harming others. I personally asked God during this Lent for the gift of silence, And it's not just the silence of speech. It's the silence of, the written word, that need to immediately respond to others, to everything that bothers you, to everything you find invasive. I want to have the right to be silent. I don't want to have to explain everything all the time. This is a right we need to preserve. At home, sometimes it's like this. Sometimes in a relationship, how many times are you demanded by the other? You have the right to be silent. You have the right to make your silence. And the other needs to understand that your silence might be the moment you are taking care, not to say what you wouldn't want to say. So, the control of this aggressiveness today needs to go through this experience of inner life, as we talked about in the previous segment. The inner life, this experience of cultivating who you are, of having your moment of relaxation every day, even if it's just 10 minutes, folks. I particularly think it must be very difficult to live in a very crowded house where you don't have the right to your personal silence. Isn't it difficult? You who live with many people in the house. At home, I have my space. There are the people who work with me, my friends who visit my house, the people from my close circle, my family. But I am very reserved. When I want my silence, I don't even make an effort to be polite. Look, folks, I'm leaving. I withdraw because I need this spiritual life, this inner life, because otherwise I become worse than I already am. And I don't want to. I don't want to be worse than I am. I don't want to get worse. I don't want to move backward. I want to move forward. So I want to discover everything in my behavior, in my choices that will favor my progress. You need to do the same thing. It's your right. But here at home, it's difficult. Create your space. Create your routine. Discover in your daily life a way to cultivate this inner life. Some people read the gospel of the day. I think the gospel of the day is an excellent way to create inner life. Because when you commit to reading the gospel of the day, you have the daily liturgy. You can follow it through the Bible in year A, year B, year C. You read the gospel of the day, you stay in communion with Jesus' word, and at the same time, create your 10-15 minutes. You read the gospel and make your reflection, your moment of silence, which will help a lot in controlling this aggressiveness. Then there are other things that help as well. Physical activity, as we have already mentioned. the prayer group, the sharing group, reading. My God, how a book calms us down, folks. Books are fantastic. Blessed is the person who learned from childhood the pleasure of reading. They will be much more peaceful in old age than those who don't like to read, because it occupies the time, right? When you are getting old, what will you do? In old age, we will have much more time, because you will stop working, you will be retired. I can't wait. You won't be in the rush anymore. So, you will have all the time in the world to cultivate yourself. What a wonder, having extra time for this inner life to shape your routine in a way that favors channeling all these positive impulses, like aggressiveness, which, if placed wrongly, becomes a tool of destruction. God gives us the nuts, but doesn't crack them. Look how interesting that is. God gives us the nuts, but doesn't crack them. And then, based on that, an author, Paulo Roberto Gefke, wrote the following text. There are many people waiting for the cake to be ready. People who expect more than a miracle. They want angels to become accountants and solve their personal accounting that never balances. They spend more than they earn and live in debt. They want angels to become doctors and cure that cirrhosis from years of alcohol, the lung emphysema from many years of smoking, the chronic diseases from years of poor nutrition, the nervous diseases from lack of self-love. The miracle is there every day, available to those who want to change. Available to those who want to change. It's the sun that provides the work, the rain that promotes the plow, the sea that brings the shoal, the river that fills with fish, the technology that creates jobs, life itself that renews and clearly and concisely says, God gives everything you need. It's a time for motivation, for believing more in yourself, using the energy of the soul, of the heart. Time to take the nuts and crack them with the fruits, make cakes, sweets, and ice creams. Then you invite me to come over and eat the cake with coffee with milk. So many possibilities for the miracle to establish itself, for you to see and feel God. Learn then from this lesson. God is not found in lamentation, nor in complaint. God is found in work, in the sweat of the face, of those who devote themselves to good, who don't have time to speak ill of anyone. People who truly discover that they themselves are a true miracle. Beautiful, isn't it? I'm really in favor of that. Enough of this story of thinking that God will do everything for us. God gives us grace all the time. Grace needs to find the task. God gave us for free. God endowed us with many blessings. Now we need to react to all of this. Besides, my people, it's very sad when you realize that the main problem of a person is laziness. Laziness in every sense of life. There are people who are lazy to improve. There are people who are lazy to make an effort to become better human beings. There are people who are practically lazy to clean dust, lazy to work. They wake up already discouraged. They don't want much effort. They want everything to fall from the sky. The world can only be transformed by courageous people, by people who face themselves every day. The biggest challenge you have in life is to tame yourself. Many times you waste a lot of time trying to tame others, trying to take care of others' lives, but the main purpose you have with life is you. The main place to be tamed is you. The main place to be transformed is you. And where I'm talking to you without listening to this, right? So I also immediately listen that the main place to be transformed is me. That I am the first to take the step and change. That laziness doesn't lead anyone anywhere. Roll up your sleeves, go study, go work, go live with dignity. I'm very afraid when people settle into charity. I'm very afraid when people settle into the charity they receive and stop making the effort for it to have conditions to overcome that moment, to no longer need that charity, so that that charity can be given to someone else who is more in need. The charity we receive, I too. How many times have I been helped? In many moments of our lives, we need help in all aspects. But that moment of being helped is supposed to be transitory. We don't have to spend our whole lives depending on it. That's why we can't stand clingy people. Emotionally needy, right? What is affection? Emotional neediness? It's that person who wants other people's charity all the time, from an affective point of view. Mind you, the love of others is important in our lives, but it's you who have to carry your burdens all the time. Another friend to help us carry life, to carry existence, but you have to deal with your problems, your difficulties. Then, every now and then, you share when it's too heavy, but you don't have the right to establish yourself in laziness, in accommodation, and expect the other to do it for you. And religion that teaches that God does everything is wrong. Honest religion is the one that teaches us that God's grace also needs to find the sweat of our face. Once someone asked Rui Barbosa, the great writer, the great thinker, "What is the secret of your genius, Rui?" Right, I was waiting, thinking, I received good genetics, my father was very intelligent, I'm very capable. Why not? He said, "The secret of my ability is that the sun never surprises me in bed. It means he used to get up early to take care of life." Of course, life has changed. Getting up early doesn't mean much anymore. There are people who work until 3 in the morning so they can't get up early, right? Mauricio, that's your case. I worked almost all night tonight. But getting up early is a metaphor. That is, don't waste time. I'm running after everything I can. Still this week, Leo introduced me to someone. Leo is a person who is responsible for my life, right? All our Natal activities. Leo introduced me to someone, and I was very moved by the story I heard from that person. And then, one of the details, of the many rich details of that person's story, is that the great financial difficulty they go through doesn't prevent that family from dreaming. A woman who completed high school with a lot of effort, with a lot of struggle, a lover of reading. And I found it interesting, beautiful, that this person, she doesn't have the money to buy books. You know what she does? She goes to the bookstore, pretends to look at the books, takes the book there, reads some 5, 6 pages, 10, leaves it there. Then she comes back, takes the same book, reads another 5, 10, because she doesn't have the money to buy the book. But isn't that fantastic, folks? And that moved me so much that I'm going to send her a box of books. It moved me so much because sometimes a person has the book at home, has the money, can buy it, and doesn't have the habit of reading. That creature deprived of so much, materially speaking, but she is not deprived of the essential, which is the will. Will is the greatest wealth a person can have. Because without will, you can give a person a college education, you can give them a house, you can give them a job, but if they don't have the will to live all of that, it will be worthless. It will be worthless to have all that. Now, the person has the restriction, but within her heart, she has this pact with life. She doesn't get discouraged. She makes her daily effort. That's why I don't pity those who make an effort. What I pity is the lazy ones. With those who make an effort, I'm sympathetic, but not with the lazy ones. Help. But the other person also needs to help themselves. They are the first part to make it work. We can't do that. We can't stop people from making this effort because sometimes we want to help, but we end up carrying the other person on our backs, assuming their responsibilities. We can't. And this happens in all dimensions of life, including in the affective spiritual dimension. Be very careful because sometimes we create a state of spiritual laziness in others. They just pass by in the middle of the room. Oh, pray for me because I need it. Isn't there a type like that who loves it when you put your hand on their head, who prays for them, but they themselves don't make an effort to improve? Oh, you guys need to pray for me, folks, because I'm not well. In these prayer groups, there are many people like that who go there every day and faint and feel sick. Why? They want attention. Or then that affective vampire who always has that look like that. The affective vampire is sad. It sucks all our blood. It grabs onto our jugular. And sometimes it takes time to realize that it was an affective spiritual vampire. It's always begging for our affection, wanting our attention. There is a range of possibilities to do that. Be careful. And sometimes we feed these people. We prevent them from growing. That's why loving is being tough with that person at the right time. I don't hesitate when I need to do that. What about people who want to cling to me and be sticky with me? Why? Because they think I have the solution to their problems. That's why you have to be very careful with those who think you are too necessary. Be careful. If the person thinks you are too necessary for them, be careful. You have to have balance. Even in friendship, isn't it? Even in marriage. Okay, if you're okay, I'm okay. Oh, I don't know. Well, if you want to be okay. Then there's that thing. It seems like conjugal love is very beautiful. Conjugal love needs to be lived all the time in that sharing. But personal lives need to continue the same way. You need to continue to have your own will. You need to continue to be in charge of yourself so you can give yourself more quality to the other. Love isn't this clingy thing that often suffocates. It can't be. That's why sometimes a harsh word is the best expression of love for that person. Grow up, mature, open your eyes, stop it. Stop being a vampire, go live your life. No, I don't have the solution to your problems. Now, when the other person doesn't want to grow, they're going to play this game their whole life. They stop doing it with you and start doing it with someone else, and they keep sticking to you. It's like a gecko. It sticks where it can. This can't happen. It shouldn't be like this. Life needs to go through our disposition, through our courage and consciousness all the time. I need to be aware of what my limitations are, what my possibilities are, and act responsibly with all of that. From all of us at Path of Faith, thank you for being part of today's discussion. We value your input, so please share your thoughts in the comments. Show your support with a like, spread the message by sharing, and subscribe to stay connected with us on our journey of faith.